Even before Anthony Davis committed to the University of Kentucky, where he would win an NCAA championship, he was already being mentioned as a future first overall pick in the NBA draft. While AD was at Kentucky, the New Orleans Hornets were bad, with a regular season record of 21-45, but that poor season gave the team top 5 lottery odds. They were originally projected to get the 4th pick, but the Hornets won the lottery that year, securing the number 1 pick for the 2012 NBA draft. And with that selection, the Hornets, who would soon rebrand as the Pelicans, selected Anthony Davis, the 6'10 big man with guard-like skills. In that same summer, the Pelicans committed significant money to Ryan Anderson and Eric Gordon. Those 2 contracts were the start of a pattern of unsuccessful signings that the Pelicans followed for the next several years. In Davis's first 2 years in New Orleans, the Pelicans struggled as a team and missed the playoffs. AD averaged 13.5 points per game and 8.2 rebounds per game in his rookie season, and improved in his sophomore year to 20.8 points per game and 10 rebounds per game. Management attempted to build around their young star, trading for pieces like Drew Holiday and Tyreek Evans, but the team was still far from contending. In the 2014-2015 season, in his 3rd year in the NBA, AD took some serious strides as a player. He increased his scoring to 24.4 points per game, with 10.2 rebounds per game. Davis also led the league in blocks for the 2nd year in a row, with 2.9 per game, and was named to his 2nd All-Star game. Davis was also selected to the All-NBA First Team and to the All-NBA Defensive Second Team, firmly establishing himself as one of the league's best players. And for the first time in his career, AD and the Pelicans made the playoffs. In the first round, the Pels were swept by the soon-to-be champion Warriors, but Davis elevated his play, averaging 31.5 points per game, 11 rebounds per game, and 3 blocks per game. While no one expected the Pelicans to win against the 1-seed Warriors, AD's play left the team optimistic about the future, and with high hopes, the Pelicans management began to make some changes, starting with the new head coach. Even though the team made the playoffs for the first time in 3 years, the team decided to fire Coach Monty Williams and go with Allen Gentry for the seasons to come. That summer, the team also extended Davis on a 5-year, $145 million contract. They also tied up more money with Omer Asik, the team's starting center, on a 5-year, $58 million extension. Asik provided nearly 10 rebounds per game in the 14-15 season, but re-signing him for that amount of money was highly criticized at the time. But clearly, the Pelicans were optimistic about their young core, and making the playoffs was enough for them to want to keep the team together. But that optimism would be put on hold. Over the next 2 seasons, the Pelicans had a combined record of 64-100. In both seasons, AD made the All-Star game and continued to improve statistically, and earned another selection to the All-NBA First Team in the 2016-17 season. But the team continued to give money away to players that weren't great investments. And at the same time, many were criticizing the Pelicans' training staff. It was later reported that with the Pelicans sharing resources with the NFL team New Orleans Saints, the medical staff was in over their heads. And as an apparent result, from 2015 to 2016, Pelicans players missed a league-worst 340 games due to injury and illness. But even with the ups and downs, the Pelicans continued making attempts to build around their star big man. Midway through the 2016-2017 season, the Pels made a blockbuster trade in what at the time looked like the next great NBA duo for years to come. They sent a package of players and picks to Sacramento to acquire a 4-time All-Star, 26-year-old Demarcus Cousins. In that season, Davis and Cousins were the 2 leading scorers for big men across the league, with Davis putting up 28 points per game and Cousins averaging 27, but the team ended that season 10th in the West, after a season record of 34-48. The Pelicans started the 2017-2018 season with playoff aspirations. The potential for the big man duo was exciting, and Drew Holiday offered solid defense and effective scoring. But things would only get worse for the team that season. As of January 26, 2018, the Pelicans' record was 27-21, and they were in a playoff position at 6th in the Western Conference. But after a missed free throw and an attempt at a rebound, Demarcus Cousins tore his Achilles tendon in his left leg. That would be the last game of the season for Cousins, and the last game he would play as a part of the Pelicans organization. Despite that injury, AD and the Pelicans pressed on that season and finished with the 5th seed in the West for Davis's 2nd career playoff appearance. In the first round, New Orleans matched up with Portland, and the Pelicans dominated the series. In that 4-game sweep, Davis led the team with per-game averages of 33 points, 11.8 rebounds, and 2.8 blocks. Holiday also stepped up as the number 2 option, averaging 27.8 points per game that series. But unfortunate for the Pelicans, in the second round they would again face the reigning and soon-to-repeat champion Golden State Warriors, who ended the Pelicans season after a 5-game series. To start the 2018-2019 season, Anthony Davis looked better than ever. On opening night against the Rockets, AD led the Pelicans to a victory after 32 points, 16 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 blocks, and 3 steals. Davis was eligible for a Supermax extension worth $240 million in the summer that followed the 2019 playoffs. But in January of that year, AD informed the Pelicans organization that he would not be signing an extension and requested a trade. Davis conveniently missed the most games of his career up to that point that season, and in July 2019, the Pelicans agreed to a 3-team trade that landed New Orleans Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, and 3 draft picks, but sent Anthony Davis to his preferred destination with the Los Angeles Lakers. While Davis has been criticized for forcing his way out of New Orleans, the team is at least in part to blame. It was clear that they viewed AD as a superstar, and at the time of his trade request, he had already been selected to 3 All-NBA first teams and came as close as 3rd in MVP voting, and the Pelicans attempted to build around him using different strategies. They traded for young guards and attempted to put another big man next to AD a couple times, but clearly none of those efforts were successful in making the Pelicans a contender, certainly not a match for those Warriors teams they faced in the playoffs. While the Cousins injury wasn't something they could have predicted, they failed to bring him back in that offseason, and arguably Davis never received a championship-level number 2 option. When AD returned to New Orleans for the first time as a Laker, he was not kind to his former franchise. After receiving the expected boos during the game introduction, Davis went on to record 41 points and 9 rebounds. That 41-point game was his career high at the time, a career high that he would break 1.5 months later, when the Lakers hosted the Pelicans in LA. In that game, he put up 46 points and 13 rebounds in a 10-point Laker victory. Of course, Anthony Davis and the Los Angeles Lakers went on to win a championship, and Davis would eventually sign a 5-year contract with the Lakers, and then more recently a 3-year extension. Since AD left New Orleans, the Pelicans have struggled. They have made it back to the playoffs once, and their newer number 1 overall pick has struggled to stay on the court, and some have reported that Zion Williamson's relationship with the Pelicans is fractured. Perhaps the team is about to face another Anthony Davis situation. It seems that in recent years it has become more popular and acceptable throughout the NBA for players to request to be traded from their teams. Anthony Davis played 6 seasons in New Orleans. He was an all-star in 5 of those seasons. He made the All-NBA first team and All-NBA defensive teams in 3 of those seasons. AD left the Pelicans 1 year before he would have qualified for an NBA Supermax deal, and at the time, that contract would have been the largest in NBA history. Should Davis have waited for the contract before asking for the trade, or would he be untrustworthy to a future organization? What do you think of players forcing teams to trade them? Was Anthony Davis's request uncalled for? Or can a player's trade request be justified by a team's failures? Let us know in the comments, and subscribe. Thanks for watching Basketball Pantheon.